First of all, thank you for being a part of this project. I want to tell you a little bit about what the project is about, the goals, the rationale, and then we're going to set you off on this and you're going to solve some big problems for Miss Taylor and I. So first of all, next year I want to explain something. Next year, Miss Taylor and I will be in back-to-back rooms. She's currently in room 710. And I'm moving into Mr. Luce's room at the semester break, actually, into 708. And the goal is to transform these two rooms into what we're going to call a student-centered classroom. Now, what that ultimately means is that our belief is most classrooms are designed around the teacher. Think about your rooms. Think about the amount of space that's taken up by your teacher. In my current room, previously probably a fifth of the space, that first fifth of that space would have been my desk and my Elmo and my storage and my other desk and my stacks of paper. And so one of the things we want to do is pull teachers' footprints out of the room and give it back to students. Now it's not just that simple. It's not just taking teacher space out and adding student space in. It's about the feeling and the experience in that classroom. So a couple of things, what that means in terms of changes, is Taylor and I are going to change the way we teach. It'll be a much more micro-burst lesson, smaller increments, so there will be some all-group instruction, but actually most of the time in the classroom will be spent students with students, small grouping, pairing, forming organized little groups, study groups, and working towards different types of goals. And what I mean by that is our feeling is that generally a teacher teaches to a group, and then there's always the group that's bored and could be doing this and wants to be challenged. There's always a group that's at the bottom that just needs more time and more of a tutoring experience, and teachers just don't address that generally. So our belief is the answer is through what's called differentiation, which means that instruction is delivered at multiple levels. Now that doesn't always mean by the teacher themselves, but it could be by groups and leaders within those groups. In any case, there'll be changes to the teaching, but we also want the environment to say, this is not your normal classroom. So we don't want someone to walk in and say, oh, look at those nice desks, they're in groups. That isn't what we're talking about. We want you to walk in and feel like this space invites you to want to be there. Now there's lots of variety of what that could mean to you, but to us those are inviting spaces. It's changing furniture, it's actually changing the physicality of the room and maybe the dynamics of what it looks like, and paint and all those kinds of things are involved. And then there are other things that will be important for us to take care of, and that will be about the curriculum, making it so that it can be tiered to different levels of students. It will be about using more technology to solve some of those problems and making this classroom a really cool and powerful place to be. So I want to talk about these two rooms. I don't want to talk in too much specifics. We have some very good ideas that we like, and we've talked to Simpson and Coulter Studio and the architects and the interior designers there, and they're starting to brew some ideas as well. But we want student input on what the cool classroom would be like for you and for your friends. What would it be? What would be the best environment for students and student work? So a couple of things that we would say, when you're thinking about spaces, think about ways to draw students in. Now that can be different types of seating. It could be booth seating. It could be floor seating with a rug that pulls people in. It can be about different types of table heights and sizes. And now those are cosmetic things, but those are a part of what we're talking about. We're talking about flexible seating, which means that seating can be moved, and so it isn't this rows and desks and isolation. It's gathering, it's taking these items and making a group. It's using the current furniture and items to do that. So flexible in its use as well as in its location. We do still need to have an environment that allows us to deliver a full lesson, and what I mean by that, or a full class lesson, to a group. So you have to be thinking about how would students gather, where would the teacher do some of those things. And I want you to think about this differently. Don't assume that there's a front of a classroom. Don't think about that there's a place that this always happens. Think about that that could happen in different places and at different ways in that classroom. Be creative. Don't think the way you've always seen a classroom. Inviting spaces that draw you in, that they pull you in, whether it seems like, ooh, I would love to sit in a beanbag, or ooh, I would love to meet with my group in a booth or a special study room. Also, the ability to deliver full as well as the other. Now, let me talk to you about these two words here. This says gathering holes and caves. Now, we've done a lot of reading about spaces and the way to design these kinds of rooms, and they use these two terms as ways to understand them. A gathering hole is where everybody comes together to do something in common. And so those would be the kinds of spaces and tables that say, come here and we'll work together. Now, caves are where we want to be private and a little bit more quiet, and so we have to think about all types of learners here. Because if you're going to solve a student-centered classroom, every student has to feel comfortable there. So think about what you would want, what would feel comfortable for you, but also for your peers and others around you. Now let's talk about just the idea, and then I'll get to some specifics about really what you're in charge of, which is the makeup of these rooms. Is when I think of what these things should feel like, it might feel like a work studio. So you come in and feel like it's kind of open environment, allows it to be flexible. You might think of, if you've seen tutoring centers, as to ways of grouping people and thoughts like that. I like the phrase the student lounge, a place that kind of draws you in. The lighting is good, the formation of seats are comfortable and enjoyable, a place that you would go to hang out and enjoy. Now that is not usually the way we think about a classroom, so think differently with these things. And then an environment that would address all students. So you got to think about everybody, because if you're going to try and get away from this group instruction, Mr. Patterson telling the way it is at the front of the classroom, then you have to think about how do I organize these things for others. Let's get to the specifics now of some of the fun of the reconstruction. Mr. Seinel has given us the thumbs up to be creative and do some cool things. Let me tell you a few ideas, and then they're all yours from here. First of all, in Miss Taylor's room, there is an accompanying room 7-Eleven. It's currently used for storage. That can be now applied to this. So think about spaces. Could we put something, open some things up and use that room in a cool way? Could we use that as study rooms? Is there a way to glass out areas so people could work? Can we use this in a particular way that would be powerful because it could be separated or accompanied with the rest of the group? Also here, think about ways to involve the hallway. Think of that as part of our space. Now, is that windows? Is there a way to somehow put seating or arrangements out there, or whiteboards out there, or things that would allow some of our flexible seating to go out there and use that? We want to grab as much space as we can and use it as effectively as we can. Now, between the two rooms, there's currently storage and the sliding whiteboards. Be creative there. We're thinking maybe, do we open that up so that at some stage those rooms could open and that could be used between as one full room? Is there a way to be creative about storage or technology or something about this space in here? There's currently a walkthrough here through a closet and can be used in whatever way you think. Over here, this classroom does not have an accompanying extra room, but the thought is that in this corner, if you remember, there's some glass block lighting here and here, and the idea might be to somehow incorporate this as a part of this classroom. Use of natural light, the connection to the hallway and extra space provides more creativity for us. Is there a way to open this up in some way or to invite some use here that might be powerful to that classroom? Think beyond what you normally think of in a classroom. Make something unique and cool and exciting, and if we find pieces of that to be that magical thing, we'll use them. That's the cool thing. You're about to design something that may make A-Tech in our school just a unique space, and your name will be on it. So think outside of the box. Be creative. Create spaces that you would want to be a part of and would be creative for you. And I think for us, the things that we're interested in, think about lighting, think about flexible spaces and multiple uses for those. Think about incorporating new space that exists but is really unusable space currently. Think about ways to use windows and spaces and new doors and archways and sliding mechanisms to open things or reduce things. Remember, the key word becomes flexible use. That's the powerful thing, because then it will allow for many forms and many types of things. We're excited to see what you're going to do. In a week or so's time, I know that some of the group from Simpson and Coulter Studio will be there to evaluate your projects and your ideas, and Miss Taylor and I will be there as well to listen to what you've come up with and think about how we could incorporate it into this school. Good luck.